Hi, it's Claire Wasserman, and welcome to my podcast, a behind the scenes look at what it really takes to own our worth and reach our goals. I coach real women on how to get what they want at work and in life, as well as a window into my own process as I too figure this stuff out, because it's hard. And so, thank you for being here. It's nice to know we're not alone. In this episode, you'll meet Jessica, who is mid career and feeling a lot of regrets. From a very young age, she felt a calling to sing and so put in a lot of training and student debt to become a professional opera singer. But by the time she was 30 and struggling to land a manager, she gave it all up. That was 12 years ago, and Jessica hasn't sung since, not even in the shower. She came to me feeling a lot of anger and disappointment because, as she says, she keeps getting in her own way. Now, I know I'm not supposed to pick favorites, but I think Jessica might be one of the best coaching sessions I've done so far, mainly because of her eloquence in articulating her struggle and her openness to dig deep. Just a note for all of you listeners, this session has been recorded with her consent and edited for clarity. Now, if you're interested in being coached by me or simply have a question that you want answered, go to clairewasserman.com. Okay, let's dive in. Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for being with me here today. I'm going to start by reading what you wrote in and confirming that it's still accurate. And if so, any additional context that you think would be helpful for me to know. Okay, so here's what you said. You said, my career is not what I want it to be and not what it should be. I am capable of so much more, but I think the right opportunity combined with me getting in my own way has reared its ugly head far too many times. I need help managing this and my anger and regret about unfulfilled dreams and disappointing results from feeling like I have worked so hard and not gotten where I want to be in life. It's intense. It's intense. And you're
Yeah.
not the only one who feels this way. This is why I wanted you to be on the show with me. So tell me, Jessica, how does it feel to hear that? Okay, what you wrote in and any updates since you wrote that.
It feels even more impactful hearing what one writes about oneself. It's certainly still accurate today. I am a person who I admittedly am struggling with where I am supposed to be and what I am supposed to do in this life. In my 45 years of life, I feel like I've had several extraordinary opportunities in many different facets and genres and environments. Yet I still feel like I haven't been able to capture the professional fulfillment that I feel like I should have.
What does professional fulfillment mean to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How will you know when you have it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So for me, I've always been a very hard worker. Both of my parents were, I guess, what you would describe in today's society as blue collar. They were list makers. They got up early in the morning and they worked until the work was done. And so that was the example that I grew up with. And that's who I turned into. And when I first started exploring what I would do in life, it came pretty easily to me because I was a singer from a very early point in my life, like around 5. I started making sounds with my voice. And I was in environments where people would cultivate that, right, in school. And then people would introduce me to other people who would cultivate that. And throughout that path, I became very married to this idea that what I did would define me. And so when I pivoted from being a professional singer to being an administrator, I did that under duress ultimately. And I did that with very few options in mind. I was living in New York City. I was what most people are, which is broke. I was 30. I had 2 degrees in music. I had been in school for 8 years. I had auditioned and done prestigious programs, and I had no management. And by 30, you really need to have management, and you really need to be able to navigate in a professional way these major opera houses. And so that just wasn't happening. So I parlayed to arts administration. And I really looked at that as a way of combining all of my skills. And I really thought that would be my happy place. And what it turned out to be was like an emotional storm that I never was able to get out of.
Mm, an emotional storm I was never able to get out of. How does that manifest? What does that look like in a given day?
Yeah. So I didn't ask your question, which was, what does professional happiness look like? And
Oh,
at this point, what I can define is that it would look like me feeling like I'm in the right place, I'm at peace,
mhm,
and I'm doing well.
mhm,
That storm, I think for me, like brews in my daily life. I always feel like I started something I didn't finish.
mhm,
And the past 3 years of my career have also defined that. I've started in roles and I've left them because they haven't been right for a number of reasons.
mhm,
And I have felt like for the past decade that I can just not get out of this storm, that I work hard, that I show up on time, that I'm diligent, that I am detail oriented, that I am strategic,
mhm,
but that I am not getting to where I need to be.
mhm,
And so part of why I was interested in doing this is because at least my perception of what you have accomplished is that you have.
mhm,
And by doing that, you get to move forward.
mm, mm. Oh, so many thoughts. Oh, okay. Let's begin with a song. No. First of all, anytime somebody says should or need, bing, there's like a red flag that just pops up for me because doesn't mean that you're wrong in what you're saying, but it means that you have defined life in a very specific way. And when life is not going that way, we are not at peace. And it's this kind of conditional relationship that we're having with ourselves ultimately, where if I have not met these conditions, therefore I am not happy. Or if I work hard enough and do the right things, I will have the right opportunities. This pact that we
Mhm.
have with the universe. Whenever I talk about this, I always share a little bit of my own story for a second. I have been the same way as you. And guess what? Most people are. Okay. We're raised in a certain way. You know how you were raised. You totally were self-reflective in this way of, okay, list making, therefore I have absorbed it and have proceeded this way. That was broken apart for me when my son was diagnosed with major health issues 24 hours after I gave birth. I
Mhm.
felt like I had reached 38 weeks of twin pregnancy. I had a scheduled C-section. Therefore, I should have healthy children.
Mhm.
I didn't. And it was random. It wasn't genetic. I did everything right. And he had holes in his heart.
Mhm.
I felt like my pact with the universe just shattered. And it was like, I have so little say in what actually happens to me. And we can make these jokes about, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow. And did I live my life? And we half acknowledge that we're not in control, but we try really hard to be in control.
Mhm.
I think it's a fine line between being in control and being intentional. What you are seeking to do actually here is to be intentional. Every choice that you make, starting with the moment you open your eyes in the morning, I want you to feel like you owned that decision. And it doesn't matter all the externalities around you, whether there's an opportunity or not, you are proud of the choices that you are making. And so again, it's this nuance, right? Command, control, and intentionality. It's heady stuff, right? It's like very philosophical and abstract. And the question is, what can you do to actually practice that in the day to day? So don't worry, we'll get there. But I did jump out at me with the like the needs and the shoulds and what is the right opportunity. And even the idea of like, what is an artist? I want to define a little bit more concretely. When you imagine where you should be or what that right opportunity would look like, do you have an idea of what that is?
So again, I think that's a great question. And I think part of where I am is this place where, and this might also be from continuing to pay student loans from the three schools that I attended.
Mhm.
every month, right? So I incurred all this debt to
Mhm.
do all this work, to be this singer. And in my mind, I thought that's what was going to happen.
Mhm.
And when it wasn't happening, I still had all that debt to pay and I still had to pivot to something else. And so I have worked for a lot of prestigious institutions. When one looks at my resume, you would think, and actually, in some recent interviews that I've had, people have said, the way that you describe yourself, you would think that would have been the perfect job. Why didn't that work out? I have found recently in interviews that people have become more judgmental than ever and really prodding into the decisions that one has made to leave a job. I don't feel like they're my decisions anymore. I feel like they have become these platforms on which people wish to like politically stump,
Mhm.
which is insane to me. But sorry, I didn't answer your question. I have a tendency to not be good at that.
I think also I have a better question to ask you, by the way,
Okay.
which is when do you feel most fulfilled and at peace, right?
Yeah.
All the things that you want to feel in your life. Don't even tell me a title or
Yeah.
really just in the moment, when do you feel like you are in the place that you want to be? Or
Yeah.
do you really never have that at all in a given day?
I think throughout the past 12 years, I have felt that occasionally based upon things that I have accomplished in the
Mhm.
workplace.
Mhm.
But as far as me getting up in the morning and that being a continuous feeling, no.
Mhm. Can you give me more details of when you have had the feelings that you would like to have in a sustained way? And it could
Yeah.
be many years ago, by the way.
Yeah. I feel a great sense of accomplishment, for instance, when I am working on being an executive assistant, right? And I'm in that environment and I have accomplished a board meeting. In
Mhm.
one of my jobs, I managed a very large foundation board and several subcommittees. And I had never actually done that before.
Mhm.
And I felt a great sense of accomplishment by arranging this meeting from start to finish
Mhm.
and actually seeing the fruits of that labor
Yeah.
being like the results of that. So I think for me, my happiness comes from doing hard work and seeing results.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think it's feeling the impact of what you're doing.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
What about shifting from a sense of accomplishment to a sense of aliveness? So when would you feel most
Wow.
alive?
I don't feel alive.
Mhm. Why did you want to go into opera? Why did you want to be a singer? I know it came out from you, from who you
Yeah.
were as a person, but you invested a lot of time and money into it.
Good.
Why?
Why? To be honest, I wasn't very good at school.
Uh-huh.
And this seemed to be the one thing that I was good at. And because I came from parents who divorced when I was 10, but because I came from parents who did very respectable but like average tasks,
Mhm.
right, in life, had never elevated themselves into something like being a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or being an opera singer at the Metropolitan Opera, that when someone identified, "Oh, you're good at that," I just took that and ran.
Mhm.
And so for basically from like age 5 to age 30, my mind was with that. And when I decided not to do it, I suffered a death. And I have mourned that death. And I tell my husband on a regular basis, like, I just don't feel like I'm ever going to be able to get over that not happening
Mm. Mhm.
for me.
Now, I could continue to ask you questions that allow you to give the answer, but I also could just tell you what I think, and I'll do that. Just terrible coaching practice, but I'm going to give you what some thoughts I have on what you said, and then you tell me if I'm on the mark or off. Are you disappointed, regretful, and angry because you didn't accomplish what you set out to accomplish? Or, and I shouldn't say it's an or because it's not mutually exclusive, but maybe you tell me which one you feel more deeply when you really reflect on it. So, lack of accomplishment, right? Didn't reach your goal, anger over that, and slash or being an artist, okay? Expressing yourself creatively, letting your voice shine through, right? Doing something that comes naturally to you, something you don't need to be strategic about, where you can just be instead of do, right? This is innate to you, clearly, if you started doing it when you were 5. So again, they're not mutually exclusive, but what is the frustration that you don't get to express yourself as an artist? Do you feel that more deeply? Or do you feel anger over the didn't reach the goal after I invested all this time and money? They both are true, but which one would you say in your soul do you really feel more than the other?
Yeah, these are so eloquent in the way that you've described them. I think for me, I feel a sense of great loss for not being able to do something that I naturally did
Mhm.
and feeling like I have to push myself to do something that I never had a goal to do.
Not great, but
Yes.
um, okay, so I'm gonna read to you what I wrote out. I wrote a whole bunch of stuff when I got what you wrote in, and I just did a whole train of thought with myself, and you tell me if and what resonates here. So I wrote feelings of anger and regret. I said, what is it helping you with? Okay, so I have a thesis here. We don't ever do things that subconsciously we don't feel is helping us in some way. So you've consciously identified this anger and regret, it's blocking you. Okay. That's the negative part, but there's a positive to it also. So I thought to myself, what is it helping her with? Anger and regret, it's a distraction. Okay. She's putting so much energy. Okay. So I'll just say you. So you're putting so much energy into the anger and the regret that you now have no energy to be creative, to be the artist that you are inside. And it's you're waiting for someone else to change your circumstances, not realizing that you are the someone that will change your circumstances. Okay, then the question becomes, how do you be the person that you want to be? Right. And then I thought, all right, if she's trying to be an artist, here's the problem with being an artist is you, not just you, anybody who is seeking a yes means you are not in control. You are picked for that part or you are rejected for that part. I'm a failed actress. I want to be clear. And by failed, I didn't even try. Okay. I just won the high school drama award. And my ego said, great, we are not even going to attempt to do an audition after this because I am too fragile to suffer rejection. Okay. So it takes so much courage to do this because you are constantly getting those, right? Too many other people decide whether or not you succeed. So then you decide, all right, I can't be an artist because not enough people are giving me enough opportunities. But that means you've defined being an artist only if other people say you are. Okay. So do we agree? You are still an artist if only other people say you are. You might then say to me, no, Claire, I believe I'm still an artist, even if no one says I get to have that part. I have something to say. I have a voice. I have a soul, the artist soul. We talked about that. It only matters if you believe it to be true. Of course, we'll get into a conversation of now, how do you make a paycheck out of this? So I'm not delusional here, but as long as we can admit that we are who we declare ourselves to be. At the beginning of our conversation today, you mentioned something about you have perceived me as a person who's been able to create a thing, right? I remember the first time I got asked to be on a panel about the wage gap, I felt like a total fraud. And guess what? I fucking was. I had only started this a few months before. And the only credit I really had was, yeah, I'd worked in recruitment. I was just angry about the wage gap. That was it. And I Googled some shit. It was such a scary moment for me that only later on I realized, wow, this is what mediocre white men do all the time. They just declare themselves this. Literally, it's if you just go out there and say, I am this person. Now, of course, You have to have some credentials, which you do. You have lots of schooling in your case, right? For me, I started to host events. That was more than a lot of other people were doing, right? And then you build expertise over time, but it doesn't start by doing a bunch of research and then putting yourself out there. You got to put yourself out there first while you quickly do the work. You've definitely done the work, right? You're paying for that work now with your student loans. Okay. All right. At your core, if you believe that you are an artist, okay, singing is one way that it manifests itself, right? But I think being an artist can manifest itself probably in other ways, which means you can manifest yourself in other ways. How can you start to do that now without waiting for anyone else to give you an opportunity? Okay. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg here, right? In what ways can you start living more like an artist? We can talk this out very specifically. How do you be more creative in your life and express yourself first to yourself and then maybe publicly? And I have some ideas that I want to throw out there for you. It begins to snowball. You then witness yourself literally being and becoming, honestly, the person you always were, but you're just finally allowing yourself to come out of the closet, so to speak, right? It's moving anger and regret to the side. Right now, it's in the front of your car that you're driving. It's all we can see, but it's a distraction. So if we can just windshield wiper that away and instead really put that 5-year-old in the front seat here and honor her every day, you start to believe yourself, right? You've declared yourself that we're not quite sure. Do we believe it or not? Maybe. Oh, and then every day we're doing actions that support that. And it starts to snowball. And then, of course, you get strategic. So there is the fact of the matter is you have to make money here, right? You have to have a career, right? But you also have to have a life. And ideally, what you do in your career would be the life that you want to lead. That's ultimately what I would like you and everyone to get to. In the time being, maybe it is, okay, we've got my day job that pays the bills, but every time I have a moment to myself, I am working towards this other thing that I have a say in it. And by the way, well, I have actually, let me tell you a little bit more. I have a couple more lines that I prepared, and then I want to hear your thoughts. And then we can talk about ways in which you express being an artist without anyone else giving you approval, and also ways that we can maybe start making money from it. So I wrote, how do you declare yourself? How can you start living artist right now? And that means acknowledging there is a pricelessness about you, untouchable by external circumstances, which sounds nice. Do you believe it? Do you believe you're worthy of it? And then I thought maybe she thinks there's a really big reason she's held herself back. Maybe she thinks she's not good enough, right? Maybe she wasn't getting the management, the representation, the auditions, the yeses, because she is not as good as she would like to be. What happens if that's okay? What happens if it's okay to, let's just say you suck? You don't, because you clearly have a lovely voice. Also, I grew up in the opera and I've seen your face, and my mom would always say she's got a singer's face. You have the cheekbones. Like, that's literally the end of it. Like, all you need is the cheekbones. So I already know that you're talented. But let's say you suck. Let's say you're mediocre. Okay, perhaps this is true. What happens if you just love it that much that it doesn't matter?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not talking about making a paycheck. I'm not delusional. We have to make the paycheck. So I'm always going to keep reiterating that, because anybody listening or watching going, Claire, come on, be realistic. I totally am. But there's like a hurdle that we have to get over here. This like mind dialogue that we have, how we think we should be in the world, working hard, turning into results, must be good enough, sense of accomplishment. Oh, it's exhausting. It's a burden. And it's what's fueling the anger and the regret and the resentment and the distraction. Let's say we suck, but we love it anyway. That's radical. What happens if we still did it? And we'll talk about what it is and how that can be expressed and actually make you some money. But it's wild to think about not being very good at something, but still doing it simply because it has intrinsic enjoyment and joy in it, versus I enjoy it because I had the accomplishment. That's extremely difficult to do for anybody, but I think in particular for women, because we have a lot of pressure on ourselves to be perfect. I just said a whole bunch of stuff. Tell me what, if anything, resonated, if it's getting your ideas going. And actually, now this is why I'm glad I'm not doing this live because I'm going to be editing the shit out of this. But let me just tell you the last line that I wrote, and then I want to hear what your feedback is. Okay. So I said, what if you aren't good enough? Are you open to being bad, to sucking? And this can often feel the hardest, right? We are terrified of looking bad to others. Literally, as a species, we would not exist if we didn't care about how we were the rest of the tribe. Okay. So this is as part of your wiring to really care if others like you, approve of you, etc. And when you're in a position where constant rejection happening, it's going up against your survival wiring. Okay. Being told, no, oh my God, it's like this wound. Of course, from wound to death, you use the word death, right? Okay. So instead, here's what we do. Instead of looking bad to others, we decide we'd rather look bad to ourselves. And that's why we then make choices that we are unhappy with, actually. Like you made a pragmatic choice. I actually think you made a good choice. And then some stuff got lost along the way. It made a lot of sense in deciding to go into arts administration. It married an interest you had with skills that could elicit a paycheck a little bit more easily. Right? So it was a pragmatic decision, probably not the wrong one. But I would imagine you probably say to yourself, I don't like myself a lot. And that feels more comfortable to you than if you were to be auditioning and then being told by other people, you're not good enough. So you say, I'd rather just tell myself I'm not good enough and actually do that on a pretty consistent basis than every now and then get a rejection from others. If that is feeling true to you, just know that is not your fault. And that is absolutely how we are wired and then socialized on top of it. Based off of all the things that I said in my late night rant that I did to myself based off of what you wrote in, what's resonating, if anything, and is it sparking some ideas for you?
Yes. Furthermore, I think what you said is really profound for me because I have taken all of this, you must be elite, you must not make mistakes, that note must be perfect, that aria must be perfect, that outfit must be perfect. Oh, and you know that you have to lose weight for that role. And I know that there's nothing that you can do about it, but you're really too short to ever be a singer, right? Yeah. Okay. I've taken all of that into my executive assistant to the president and CEO or executive assistant to the executive director. I've taken all of that shit with me. And I do admittedly need to put all that down. Right? No one will know what it's like except someone who has lived in it or lived with someone that lives in it, to be in a room by yourself all the time and be militant about, nope, do it again. No, do it again. No, do it again. I bring all those expectations to the office, right? So all of these people that I work with, part of this anger that I'm fueled with every day is that if I feel like I'm working with people that don't work hard, that don't care about their jobs, because I do care deeply, so deeply about everything. And I bring this deep empathy to everything that I do, to the people that I work with. When I don't work with those types of people, I get upset. And I am not someone who's able to hide any of those feelings. Also, I have never, ever been able to really find a way to say to myself, okay, you may not have done this professionally, but you can still do this for you. Because I was trained to be this person who needed to be on the main stage, right? Like I said to myself at 30, after 4 voice teachers and 3 academic institutions and like 10 amazing programs of prestige, I guess I'm not good enough. I guess this isn't working out. I have $30 in my bank account, right? I'm living in New York City. I'm desperate for less chaos. Okay, I quit.
Right.
Okay, I quit because you've won, right? Like the other side has won. I have lost, and I don't know what to do besides, okay, like I did work study in college. Then I was like a file person for a company as a summer job. Then I worked for a temp agency. Like that was what I did and bartended outside of singing. I just figured, okay, I'm not a singer. I'm going to do that.
By the way, can I interject? I'm going to interject for a quick second. So when you said you've won, they only won if the game that you thought you were playing was defined in a certain way.
Yeah.
I like to tell people when you're having a difficult moment, just pretend that you are a character, the main character in a movie. And when we're watching that movie, we know that it is a scene that will lead to the next scene. Whereas when you're in it, it feels like that scene is the entire movie. All right. That game that you were playing in the way it was defined, you lost it. Okay. Again, in the way you defined it, if that's the game. What happens if it's a completely different game that you were actually playing here? And you needed to go through that in order to learn who you were and what the definition of courage was. By the way, all these decisions are incredibly courageous. You probably think the only courageous thing was going into the arts. I actually see a lot of courage in saying no. Okay. Making a pragmatic choice. That's a lot of courage. I think something that you would be really great for you to work on is forgiving yourself for making that choice.
Okay.
That's going to be a practice for sure. And we can talk ongoing after this of what that might look like. But I really think forgiving yourself for all choices that have been made before, as it really is distracting you from taking the next step now to living every day in a way that honors the 5-year-old. I also think the feelings that you have caring so deeply about your job, part of that might be because you see your identity was largely informed by what you do for a living and not just what you do, but the results and the impact that you have. It's a very beautiful thing. I'm certainly one of those people too. But it's a dangerous thing because it does rely on other people. So when they suck or when opportunities don't happen, you get really upset. Again, distraction. It is all energy distraction from something you need to be pouring into your creative self. And I think if we can get you working consistently on something creative that is just your own, again, not reliant on a yes or no from anyone else, you have this special thing. I almost imagine it like a little flame and you're tending to it at home. Okay. It's this little like flower that you're tending to. And you go into the workforce, right? You got to make your paycheck and you're going to put on a different mask. It's going to be the like professional Jessica. And because you have this little flame or flower that you are tending to at home, I think you are simply not going to care as much about anything else happening at the paycheck part of your life because you're like, I can't waste that precious energy. I need it when I go home. And you're actually going to feel a little hee, like almost like I have a little secret, and also really proud of yourself because you are doing the adult pragmatic thing of making a paycheck. And you're also honoring the 5-year-old, right? I think it's if you are only doing one or the other, it's not working for you, right? Being the broke artist is not working for you. And I commend you for making that hard decision, right? Just doing the paycheck professional Jessica, that's clearly not working for you either. And you've been listening to yourself and you're saying enough, right? That takes courage. People deny their feelings all the time. And I know somebody right now who's gone through a lot in her life and has just completely turned to alcohol. She's an alcoholic now, just really numbed herself. So it takes a lot of courage to say, no, I am going to face this. I'm going to sit in the shit. And now I'm going to do something about it. Here's the thing. What do we do? This is where I'm going to interject with a couple of ideas that I have, although I'm a little hesitant if I should start by giving you my ideas versus asking you if you've ever thought of, let's start with maybe giving you an opportunity to tell me your ideas. So if you imagine the flame, the flower, if you have this little thing at home that every day you tend to, and it might just be 10 minutes a day, or maybe it's you dedicate your weekends to it. Do you have any sense of what that could be?
It's hard for me to identify that now because I'm still working on this concept that you've shared with me that I wouldn't have to be good at it.
You actually shouldn't be good at it. If you are getting better, Yeah. What are you imagining yourself singing and not being good? Or what about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that at any time during this decade plus, I could have said, you know what? I'm going to teach music history at a community college, right? I have a master's degree, right? So I can teach undergrads. Or I'm going to teach voice to kids or any of these things, right? Like I'm going to be in my community talking about the arts and lighting the flame,
Mhm.
as you called it. And what's very interesting to me, and I know that there is anonymity in this, but you use a word that I used when I tried to start my own consulting company after I was a singer. I tried to be a consultant in the arts, and
Okay.
this word flame
Uh-huh.
was something to me that really identifies not just for singers, but people who accomplish things every day on every scale. I believe that people have lit that flame.
Mhm.
And that's what went out in me.
Mhm.
So I get that part. It's just this whole transference to like, would I take people's money? And am I a good enough advocate for teaching someone what I think I know about the arts? Or, yeah, would I start to practice again? And would it matter that I haven't really sung in 12 years? Of course it would, obviously, because being a professional opera singer means training your voice every day.
Yeah. Yeah. An athlete. For anybody who doesn't know, all singing is like being an athlete, but especially as an opera singer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The muscle.
Yes, it's a muscle. And I will continue to think about this. I do think that you're right. And I would love to get to a place where I could just giggle
Mm-hmm.
every day about having this flame
Mm-hmm.
and not really giving so much of a shit
Mm-hmm.
about all of the stuff that we have to do to make money.
And knowing there's capitalism and you got to play that game. And again, the
Mhm.
ultimate goal, the dream would be to like make money from the thing that you love and
Or
throw out some ideas in a second of like how I think you can work towards that. But while you're playing the game over there, you're tending to the flame over here. So while that word resonates, see, all these things are happening for a reason. Um, I think, okay, so I would, as my like next step prescription here,
yeah,
you absolutely need to be singing every day. And you had said, I'd love to get to a place. No, that's like projecting way too far into the future and taking agency away. No, starting after this call, just go sing some scales. And also, by the way, if you want to don't even pretend that you're a singer anymore. Literally imagine that you are an Olympian or a former Olympian, you're an athlete. Okay. No, because if we could be having the same conversation and you could have come to me and been like,
yes,
I used to be an athlete and then I had an
yes,
injury.
yes,
Those people are going through the exact same thing. And I'd say just start running again. And we're not auditioning for anything. We're not making anything out of your singing. We are just finding the joy in it again. Because when you were 5, that's what it was. Maybe it turned into performing for others and then you got praise. It got, I'll just say bastardized or like socialization crept
yes,
in and
yes,
changed what it meant for you. But at
yes,
its core, there is joy. It is what you were supposed to be doing. It is a way to
yes,
communicate in this world. And that communication first starts with yourself, the relationship you have with yourself, right? So just let your voice out only to you with no pressure, boundaries, or anything else on it. So scales every day. Now, hearing that you had wanted to go into business for yourself and that you like to have impact on others or to see the impact that you have on others, I am envisioning for you potentially here a career as a content person. There's a lot of reasons to be afraid of it, but there's a lot of reasons to be very excited about it. I think you could really, whether it's, I'll just throw out some crazy ideas. So I'm talking about you on YouTube and Instagram and
mhm,
TikTok and all those things. Maybe it's you teaching singing to people, maybe. Slash, maybe it's you helping people who want to have a career in the arts, but have gotten a lot of no's. How do you determine next steps? You did it for yourself. Listen, you're going to be very honest about it. Hey, I made pragmatic choices. It got me a paycheck, but it also got me a lot of frustration. Here's how I've dealt with it. Here's how I continue to
mhm.
deal with it. It's about being who you are and expressing the lessons that you've learned and then helping people along the way. Now, you mentioned, do I take people's money, right? We're not there yet. We just need you to start hearing yourself being the person we know you already are, but have been distracting yourself by focusing on the anger. Okay. And I think you're going to start to connect with people who then give you feedback, and that will show you're not alone in this. And they're also going to tell you what they're willing to pay for. That then gets into the whole, what is the business? And I have a podcast episode up on how to validate your business idea. But for you, I think seeing the fact that these days artists no longer only are artists if a few opera houses say yes, but can create careers based off of social media.
Yeah, you're so right. How people consume the arts and content today has grown so much in the past decade.
Totally. When you graduated, it was a completely different ballgame.
Yes.
For better
I
or
had to have a
worse.
recorder. Yes. I
Yeah.
had to carry around a recorder with a microphone.
Now, I don't know for opera, I imagine maybe, but certainly for Broadway, I think, and models, they're looking to see how many followers people have. Like, it's
Yes.
an asset, actually. It helps you if you have a big following, because then those people will come and buy tickets. That means you have more say over the yeses than you ever did before. But again, it's not about the other people, okay? It's about you being able to provide something of value. So what can you do to help others? And I think there's a lot of directions that you could maybe go in here. You're not going to figure it out by just thinking about it, because your mind will make all different kinds of cases to you. Often fear will be the driver. So instead, it's just about putting yourself out there, just expressing yourself. Again, you don't have to turn on a camera now. It's just doing the scales for yourself. Maybe it's journaling every night. Who am I as an artist? What have I learned in the past decade? And you might start to see themes emerge of, maybe it's about decision making. You got very good at decision making and left brain, right brain. You don't need to be an expert on any of this. You're a work in progress. Okay. Just like I am with the wage gap and everything I'm doing. There's so much more for me to learn and to give. But I figured out a couple of things. But the only way I figured that out was by practicing out loud. And first in my whiteboard, I'm journaling to myself here, and then I'll put it online, and then I'm going to get some feedback, and I will all of a sudden be the person I apparently declared myself to be. So just don't let the I need to have it figured out prevent you from at least starting in some way. You are not the only person facing this. So if you can be at least a beacon of inspiration, right? If your flame can illuminate for them something, great. Don't need to figure out what's the service, how am I paying, we're not there yet, because you have a full-time job, right? You have another career path that you've been, excellent at. So I know on a quick 45 minutes, there was only so much we could do in terms of those next steps, but do you feel like you have a good sense of how this can translate for you? Because the worst thing that would happen would be any kind of aha moment that then doesn't turn into action. So I'd love if you want to recite back to me your next steps. I think that would make me feel better.
Yes. Thank you, first of all, for the time that we've spent together. I feel like I've learned a lot about myself in this time. And I think that for me to understand that I don't have to be great at it is very important. I think singing scales every day will help me, and I feel empowered to do it. So thank you. And I feel really excited about telling myself that what I've done, at least one other person says that it was courageous. I never thought that what I was doing was courageous. I thought it was surviving. And
but that's courageous. Like I said, she chose to drink, to obliterate. So she is not surviving. She is like on a steady march towards her fucking grave. I hate to say it, but we are like watching her every day not choose to do the hard thing, which is to face her fears soberly. Like, you did that. It's really wild. And you like put a resume together. Also, it was courageous to even go down the path to begin with. Like, you've proven to yourself you have courage.
Thank you. I've never thought of it like that. And I do think that this concept of not having to be great is going to help me
Good.
because I carry it around heavily, like cement.
Yeah.
Every day. Yes.
If you don't write, I would highly encourage you to do that, not only for catharsis, but this transcript will be one of the more beautiful transcripts that I read because you've just spoken in such an eloquent way, which is interesting because you commented on me doing that, but that's actually you. You spoke in a really beautiful way. You've used some really evocative words. I can absolutely see this translating to writing. You've mentioned teaching. You've mentioned starting your own thing. I think you have a real potential here to be able to guide others. Like you have all of the elements that indicate to me that you would be excellent at that and really enjoy it. So will you keep me posted?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I know everyone will want to actually, hey, if you want to send me in you singing, I could maybe include that at the end of the, you can
Ah.
edit that in. Yeah. This is awesome. I'm so jazzed because you were so not alone in this. And you have a real haha voice where I think you could be a source of guidance to somebody in an aspect of this journey. You obviously are still on the journey. You haven't figured it totally out. But like I said before about my own life, like I just did it a little bit faster and just said, hey, everybody, here's just some things I've learned. Okay, let me hurry up and try to learn some more. Like it's just, there's no need for like excellence and perfection. You just have to really be yourself. Like your voice has to be out there and it has to be true. And it will, like moths to a flame, people will come to it. But you have to stoke it first. So yeah, you'll start with the scales. And then I would say, look at people online who are doing maybe like former, even just the people who are helping to learn how to sing on social media. Like not saying that's necessarily where you end up, what you end up doing, but just starting to get familiar with how people are creating a living this way will show you that it's a possibility for you because 1,000% is.
Yeah. And I hadn't thought about that before.
Okay. I will force you to follow up with me whether you want to or not. So Jessica, thank you so much for being here. Excited to see you soar and can't wait to hear you sing.
Thank you, Claire, for your time.